a brief moment at the start of this, if anyone is struggling, just to suggest some resources. Samaritans, Befrienders, IASP.info are all resources that I'll be honest, I haven't had too much kind of personal experience with, but I kind of did a bit of reading beforehand, and I felt like, we're a very international audience. So if anyone out there, don't be like gone are the days of just stiff upper lip and all that nonsense. Like, it's important to talk about things and communicate, and I think human connection is so key and important. And it's always like I kind of balance it up in my mind, because the parasocial relationship that kind of we have and we all have with people we've heard of and know of and watch and consume and whatever, it can be a very dangerous, negative thing in some ways, but also I think it can also be somewhat positive and healthy in moderation, I guess. So yes, Samaritans.org, Befrienders.org, IASP. If you are struggling, please do reach out to these resources. And look, the world is a big and scary place at times, and we're all just trying our best, aren't we? And that's all we can do, really. But on that note, let's get to some questions, shall we? I did my little YouTube community post. Christmas Day podcast will return for this year, and I need stuff to talk about. We'd be much more relaxed than the usual stuff, so chuck whatever question you like down below. Merry Chrysler. Great meme. Great vintage meme, in fact. And I've sorted I sorted by top comments, although the actual top comment isn't the one that's most liked, but we are going to answer it first. Thank you, Sam the Ham, for your question. Portugal is back in 2027. How do you feel about this track? Porta Mayonnaise returns. I like it. I think it's a cool venue with a lot of history. At the start of this year, actually, went to the Algarve and went to the track. Couldn't go inside, but went to the outside of it, the big car park that's there, and had a little mooch around outside, which was kind of cool. And yeah, I think it's going to be a decent addition. Obviously, we've got circuits now. Zandvoort dropping off for this time being, Belgium turning into an on-off Grand Prix, and I think the inclusion of Portimao in a European calendar is positive. I would have preferred to have seen maybe a Hockenheim or Nürburgring, because I think it's been too long since we've raced in Germany. But at the same time, Portuguese Grand Prix as well is not a mainstay on the calendar. So yeah, you know what, Sam, I think overall I'm pretty satisfied with the return of Portimao. You get some decent moves into turn one. Other than that, it's a pretty good lap one race. I think lap one's a bit chaos, and the undulation is cool. I think for the drivers, this is good news, because the undulation, the G-force they're pulling, not just laterally but vertically, is gonna make them happy. And seeing these cars, not quite so much downforce from the floor anyway, flatter floors in 26, and the slightly different aerodynamic setup of these cars, it'll be interesting to see how they perform around a track like Portimao with, again, all that undulation. Ground effect cars around Portimao would have been a struggle with them not destroying their planks. So yeah, I feel good about it. I feel good about Portimao's return. Again, I would love to see Hockenheim in particular back. Hockenheim is my big European one that I'd like to see return. But of course, there are plenty more tracks outside of Europe that I'd like to see come back more so, because I think with 24 rounds, the sport, which is already like, please no more, that it's too much, I think, as is anyway. But for there to be 24 and still so many missing gaps geographically in the world, and it's not even about, say for example, there's a Grand Prix in South Africa, for example, like Kyalami. That's huge, not just for South Africa, but all of Africa. Even, if you're in south of India, you can kind of fly over. You can just, it's not so much about the country, the flag. It's more about, opening up access to F1 for people where right now it might be a 6-hour flight to their nearest Grand Prix, and then you reduce that to 2. You know, it might not be in the country that they live in, but it makes it way more accessible. And that's surely the bare minimum we should be trying to get to. And also, Kyalami is a vintage classic. Now, would it be great for F1? Who knows? But I think that's something that I would like to see happen one day. Come on, Kyalami, make it happen. Thank you, Sam. Drop you a little heart on that. Thank you, Commander. You still need to react to your 2026 grid predictions. Yeah, that's interesting, right? And I feel like I've noticed this with other creators, but the whole, and I don't know if it's like because there's a bit of F1 fatigue because the season has been long, and it, look, obviously this is my job, which is I'm incredibly privileged to be able to say that. Don't get it twisted. I do not forget that at all. And so, but I do also believe, and I know a lot of fans who, well, the majority, right, who even I know and work with and have done stuff with, you know, aren't necessarily full time, but like 24 races is a long season. It's really spread out, and when you're trying to consume as much F1 as you can, I'm sure many of you watch every practice session, every quali, every race, consume all the post stuff. Like it does get to a point where it's like, oh, we need a bit of a break here. You do need a break as a viewer in sport, and there's a break in every single sport, whether it's Premier League, whether it's basketball, whether it's NFL, it doesn't matter, right? There's always a break, and then you build up the hype and the excitement. And it feels like maybe, you know, I would like it if F1 maybe ended in, you know, end of November, right? I don't think that's too much to ask. And then all of December and all of Jan is basically no-go. And then you squeeze all of those 24 Grand Prix into the remaining 10 months of the year. I think that would kind of suit everyone better. The reason I bring that up is because the whole predictions reaction thing, like my reacting to my season predictions and also my driver rankings, like, have struggled performance-wise. And I do wonder if part of that is fatigue. Part of that also is it took a while to get out because the sponsor approval took way longer than it usually does on that. But also, like, I'm just I'm doing my quiz, which I've already done the quiz, shot the quiz. The quiz is complete, but I need to do basically the entire edit. And I'm just like, I'm looking forward to having a bit of, again, it's been a very, very chaotic 2025 for many reasons behind the scenes. Again, mostly good, but just busy stuff. And so, yeah, I think what I'm going to do in terms of my grid predictions is do new grid predictions for 27, and at the start of that video just reflect on my previous predictions rather than dedicating a video to it. Because whereas, well, obviously I stubbornly do everything myself in terms of all the thumbnails, the editing, all that. That's why I haven't done that, Commander. So, and I will do as part of my next grid predictions. I'll just, you know, cover that at the start before then doing my new ones. So, yes, I will. It just won't be a dedicated video, just because time. And yeah, it's just, yeah, that's the answer I've got for you, I'm afraid. But I'm glad you want to see them. I'll just, again, wrap it into previous. Thank you, Gardensmith. How will they do quick front wing changes in the pits, bearing in mind the new regs for 2026? And there's plenty of answers here. Spark, new wings will be a whole lot more expensive. Yes, I mean, they're already expensive enough as it is. Same way they do now. Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously the front wings are going to be movable and hydraulic probably at the start, maybe electric going forward. And in the same way that you have certain ancillaries and connections when you take a front wing off and put a new front wing on, that will probably be a like for like. Isn't it some teams, I don't know if all teams, but I'm pretty sure some teams have the water bottle for the drivers in the nose, Like it actually is in the nose, and then when they take off and put a new one on, that connection needs to be factored in when that nose is changed. I think that's true. I could be just making that up, but I'm pretty sure I saw something along those lines. And again, it's not that that's a standard thing. Some drivers have it behind the seat, the water bottle, but obviously there it gets really hot. So if you want cooler water, you'd have to have it stored further away from the driver, like for example up the nose. So yeah, I imagine front wing changes will be pretty much the same. You know, it's just like certain connections. It will just be designed in such a way that when you take it off and put a new one on, any terminals, any electronic connections, which of course there will have to be, will be automatically reconnected when you change the front wing. So I don't think that's going to be a huge issue for the teams. But thank you for your question, Garden. Appreciate it. Kane, what's your favourite pint and or cocktail when out? Well, I know, Kane, you work at... do you still work at the bar? I've just clicked on your profile, Kane, by accident. Didn't mean to do that. Where are you, Kane? You're here. Right, so to be honest, not to sound like a bit of a wet flannel, but I've kind of gone off the booze a bit. Like, you know what I will do, right? If they've got my favourite cider at a pub, which is called Aspel, it's made in Suffolk, which is kind of near to me. But that's my favourite cider. And if they have it, I will have it. But if they don't, then there's not really another cider that particularly interests me. I do also like a rum and coke, like Kraken rum with like a coke. Probably like a normal coke, actually, like a regular full fat sugary coke, but also Coke Zero is fine. But other than that, yeah, I'll probably just have like a Coke Zero or something. I'm just not that arsed about drinking anymore. The hangovers and all that, like, sometimes I'll go like, I'll have like a coke, a rum and coke, and then a coke, and then another rum and coke, and then a coke to like spread it out a bit more. But I ends up going toilet loads. So yeah, that's probably that. Well, pint wise, yeah, Aspel, or a rum and coke cocktail. Negroni, love a Negroni actually. Negroni, yes. They've got a decent Negroni, because I like a drink you can just sip, you know? You're not chugging. Because, yeah, the years of, you know, pints of Bulmers and Magners, I've always been a cider person. I hate beer. I can't stand beer. Those years are long behind me. I do not want to do that to myself anymore. I just don't. So, Kane, that's my answer to that question. Spark, thank you for your question. I think it'd be cool to look at all the F2, F3 drivers to see what rookies we might get in 2027. Who's hot and who's not. Should we do that? Yeah, let's do that. That's a great idea. Spark. Let me go to full screen and then let's get old Wikipedia. Form 26 Formula 3 grid. Yeah, let's look at F3 first, shall we? So I'll get the old screen share up again. It should, yeah, that works. Let me change the background color to white so it looks a bit more seamless. Sorry if I've blinded anyone. Actually, hang on, I can go dark mode. There we go. We can go dark mode. And let's do Tommo pink. There we go. Oh no, that doesn't work. Let's just do that. It's close enough. Cool. Right. So 26 FIA Formula 3. We have Theo now. Not sure how to pronounce that. I do apologise. Ernesto Rivera, Ugo Ugachukwu, who I do know very well. He is pretty highly touted. He's part of McLaren, is Ugo. So we'll see how he does. Freddie Slater. You can see I've already his name's different colour because I've definitely searched him up before. He's a big potential future F1 driver, no question. The Brit who was running well in Macau this year, wasn't he? And then he had a shunt. Matteo Di Palo and Noah Stromsted. Don't know too much about those two, but obviously they're all racing for Trident, who in F3, Trident are very, very competitive. They're always right at the sharp end. So keep an eye on those three, I'd say, this year. MP, Mattia Kolnacki and Alessandro Gusti. Not aware of, he's part of Williams Driver Academy, is Alessandro. And then Tuukka Tappinen, definitely heard of him. Ferrari Driver Academy. So he's someone to keep an eye on, definitely, because I've seen a lot of hype around Tappinen for sure. Then we've got Marcej Gladys. I'm going to say Gladys. Marcej Gladys. And Kanato Lee and Taito Kato for ART. Not too sure about any of those three. Formula Dream is Taito. And this is handy, actually. The little overlays just pop up and tell us who's part of what Driver Academy. Carrasquedo Jr., Bruno Del Pino, and Hiyu Yamakoshi, part of VAR, Van Amersfoort Racing. Not, again, aware of any of those, but we'll see how they do. Brando Bedoya, is that Luca Bedoya relative, I imagine? Pedro Claro and Christian Ho. Pretty sure I've heard of Christian Ho. This is all for Rodin this year, next year, should I say. It's not 2026 just yet for Rodin. Prema. See, Prema, you've always got a rep Prema somewhere, haven't you? Enzo Deligny, Louis Sharp from New Zealand. Always plenty of Kiwis making an impression in junior motorsport. And James Walton as well. For Prema in F3 next year. Finn McLaughlin, Jim Nakamura, and Michael Shin for Hatek. Again, not overly aware of a lot of these juniors coming through. I'm not one to keep my eye on the karting juniors, to be honest. It's if you get into F3, that's when I've got the capacity to, as much as I'd love to follow the junior series even more, there's only so much time in a day, right? So I rely on the excellent other resources out there to keep an eye on the next generation coming through, because you can guarantee at least one of these names will be in F1 in 5 years. Fernando Barrichello, again, assuming he is related to Rubens in some way. Brad Benavides, it's been about for a while, and Yevon Davids, all for AIX. And then we've got Nan Davids, Gem, racing for Dams, Nicola Lacourt, and a TBA announced for Dams. So yeah, I mean, look, the names that stand out to me from my knowledge: Ugo Gachukwu, Freddie Slater, Tuukka Tappinen. Absolutely, those three go without saying. They are for sure going to be three of the favourites, I'd imagine. And yeah, to be honest, I'm not overly aware of a lot of the other drivers here, so it'll be interesting to see how they perform this year. And obviously, we did get a lot of F3 drivers move up to F2 last season. So let's hang on, let's have a look. This is 26 Formula 2 Championship. Then let's take another look. Right, Rafael Kamara, of course. Rafael comfortably won F3 this year. So, and won Rookie of the Year at the FIA Motorsport Awards as well, rightly so. And so, yeah, he'll be looking to go back-to-back. Because as we know from Leonardo Fornaroli, back-to-back does not guarantee you anything. Oscar Piastri didn't jump straight into a seat either, but it can certainly only help your cause. So, yeah, Rafael Kamara and Joshua Dirksen, who's been very quick at times. Dirksen, hasn't he? He seems to have like a really good result in him. And then he'll just kind of fall away and be a bit anonymous for a while, but he can win races, like, absolutely, he's proven it. So yeah, we'll see how Dirksen does in what will be his second year. I think it will be in F2. High-Tech Toyota Gazoo Racing, High-Tech TGR, of course. Colton, hugely interesting to see how Colton is going to do amongst all these kids around him, who obviously Colton's done what he can do in IndyCar and achieved a lot in IndyCar. Obviously, Alex Palou kind of, if it wasn't for the Palou generation, maybe Herta would have achieved a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for Colton. I think he's got the absolute talent there for sure. Is he going to be able to adapt and adjust to the Formula 2 car? Because Ryotomo Miyata, Super Formula champion, has not really adjusted to the F2 car, has he? So he is going to need a big season here. So he got the support of Toyota big time. And obviously with Toyota stepping up their collaboration with Haas, if Miyata can win F2, tell you, there's a few ways Miyata gets into F1 here for 27, because obviously Ollie Behrman, great season. Could he make a step up to Ferrari in 27 if Ferrari don't show Lewis enough? Vice versa, I guess, as well. Perhaps then a door opens, because also that means Behrman probably then moves up to replace Lewis for 27. And also Esteban Ocon hasn't been all that convincing. Like, we know that there was interest in Tsunoda from Aokamatsu ahead of signing Esteban. I would not... This isn't going to be a prediction necessarily, but I could see how, if Yuki was prepared to break his relationship with Honda, because obviously Yuki going from Honda to Toyota, let's say that 27 it's Miyata and Tsunoda at Haas, like, that would be that's like a Sol Campbell level of betrayal. Football went from Spurs to Arsenal. There's many examples. That would be a pretty crazy thing for Yuki to do. But then again, if that's what gets him back into F1, then he'd need to take that opportunity. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see Miyata and Herta together. I think this looks like a pretty strong F2 field. Not gonna lie. Like, I think obviously Nikola Solov, he is highly touted at Red Bull, and we'll see how he does. He, did the weekend in Abu Dhabi and performed seemingly quite well. Obviously Lindblad has made the jump up to Racing Bulls, which makes Solov probably the most high profile, certainly the most hyped of the Red Bull juniors. There are others here, so we'll see. But I think expectations quite high for Nikola Solov this year. And then Noel Leon, which is an amazing name, by the way. Just, what should we call our son? Well, our son named Leon. Let's just reverse it and then call him Noel Leon. Love it. I think Leon's got some... I almost remember Leon more from... Well, no, obviously I know him more from F3 because he's only done F3, but he definitely had some decent results, did Leon. So, yeah, I think Campos are a good team as well. They're going to be... Lindblad was at Campos this year, and obviously he's got his fair share of wins and achievements at that team. So, a good seat for Solov and Leon, I'd say. And then Dams, Beganovic and Belinsky. Obviously, Beganovic is Ferrari Junior. And I remember, didn't he, at Abu Dhabi last year, he raced the final round, of F2. And I'm pretty sure he got fourth or something. Like, he did. I remember him jumping in at the end of last year, at the end of 2024, and doing a really good job. He didn't quite work out for him in F2 this year, but second season, I think Beganovic, you should definitely be keeping an eye on him at the front. And then Roman Belinsky, again, it's just a name that I'm always seeing up there and competitive. So, decent lineup at Dams. MP, Ollie Goethe, who's also a Red Bull junior German driver. Again, just always seems to be competitive. So he's at MP with Gabriele Mini. Mini's great. Mini's got a result in him. Mari Boyer, Sebastian Montoya, they've got results in him at Prema. Alex Dunn, obviously he's made his impression, and who knows what's going on with him. Like, it's a bit crazy what happened seemingly with Helmut and the contract at Red Bull and all that, which is not confirmed, but it's basically like there's been enough media coverage of that to essentially confirm that that's what happened, which is mad. Dunn's quick, but also he's got a crash in him, so he needs to make sure that doesn't become too much of a reputational thing. And then Martinez Stenshorn is with McLaren still. See, Alex Dunn left McLaren. Martinez Stenshorn is still with McLaren, and he's touted pretty highly. Intra Puvasak has had some great results in F3. It's been very, very quick. Chrysler is always consistently up there as well. Fittipaldi, I mean, geez, man. How many that Fittipaldi name just produces racing drivers, doesn't it? So we'll see how he does. Kyan Shields as well. He's with Aston Martin. And then Verone, John Bennett and Lawrence Van Hopen, I've not heard too much about, to be honest. So I'm not really sure where to... It looks like Verone's got a bunch of experience. 23 WEC champion in LMGT AM class. Is that amateur class? Would that be? But yeah, obviously we know that, these seats down towards the bottom. It's weird, isn't it, that Trident are never competitive in F2, but always great in like F3 and even like F4 and all these other series that they compete in. So yeah, there's a roundup of all the of all the F2 and F3 drivers for you. That was fun. Yeah, I think F2 is going to be a good watch next year. I think it's going to be a very good watch, and I'm going to try. Honestly, like the time to give F2 and actually do it properly, I then struggle to find like the capacity to consume F3. I'll try and get the highlights in as much as I can. I'd love it if the F1 channel included more like F2 quali highlights and just more like stuff. And I know it's, I'd watch it. Like if we got a little tidbit from the drivers' interviews after the F2 and F3 races. I'd just be good to it'd be good insight, good insight that we don't currently get. Right, let's go to another question, shall we? Take a little water break. I hope you enjoyed that coverage, Spark, of the F2 and F3 drivers for 2026. Thank you, Road Rage. Where do we think Cadillac will end up in their first season of F1 standings wise? Additionally, what expectations do we have as fans for the newest team coming into the sports? I mean, you've got to expect Cadillac to be the weakest of the Ferrari-powered teams. And the Ferrari-powered teams are, of course, Ferrari, still Haas, even though Toyota are with them, but Toyota aren't developing their own engine just yet. That'll be, I'm sure, for the next set of engine regulations. Toyota will jump on that, I'm sure. And we know Toyota are pushing. Have you seen like the Toyota GT? The GR GT, should I say? Because the Gazoo Racing thing. The team isn't going to be, it's going to be TGR Haas, not Toyota Gazoo Racing Haas. Like they're being a bit, it's almost like the, when they wouldn't call it Racing Bulls, they called it RB. Like they won't call it Gazoo Racing, it's TGR. Whatever. So yeah, I think, Haas clearly working very efficiently. The fact that they could have nabbed, P6 if they got a bit more performance out of Esteban at the end of the year. But, they're solid P8, could have been easily P7 in the constructors. And Haas and Cadillac are starting from nothing. You got to expect they're going to be the weakest of the Ferrari-powered cars. So, and then you would expect Mercedes to have a better engine than the Ferrari, and therefore put all of the Mercedes teams ahead of. I think it could be a painful year for Ferrari. I really do. I hope it's not the case, but let's just assume all the Mercedes-powered cars are quicker than the quickest Ferrari-powered car. Well, that puts Cadillac down in like P7 at best. And then obviously who knows what Audi do, who knows what Red Bull do. And obviously they've got two teams, so that maybe helps them somewhat in terms of comparison, I guess. So yeah, I would definitely expect Cadillac to be around last to 8th at an absolute best, to be honest. Again, Audi, Honda, Aston Martin as well is on that. I think Honda, Aston Martin, I think they will do something. I think they will be all right. Audi have put so much into this. I could see Cadillac being like, I think ahead of my predictions, like, do I put Cadillac last? Maybe. But they're going to be right down there. They're going to be right down there, I'm afraid. But you have to accept that, someone's got to be last, right? So someone's got to be last. And what does stand them in good stead is that the don't know, the pressure, the expectation, the hope at Ferrari. They need to build a good engine. And, Haas and Cadillac will reap the rewards of Ferrari smashing it. Because I don't think anyone's expecting it. I'm certainly not going to predict Ferrari to make the best power unit in 2026. No. We're not doing that again. But if they do, then Haas and Cadillac also win. In the same way that Williams in like 2017, 18, that car scored way more points than it should have. It was a rubbish chassis, but they had a great engine, and eventually they got found out. Eventually, even like 2019 came along, and the engine wasn't enough. But in 17, 18, the engine was enough to spare Williams blushes. So perhaps that's the best thing that they can hope for. But we're going to say this a lot, aren't we? You're going to be saying this a lot. We just don't know. We just don't know. And as fun as it is to speculate, I want to try and be speculating off of something. Because I was thinking as well, I don't know if there's a question about this, but my preseason predictions, I think what I'm going to do is record some that I make before testing, and then keep the footage, and then after testing I'll then re-predict, and I'll kind of showcase my pre-test predictions and then look at how different they are to my post-test predictions, but then lock in my post-test predictions as my actual ones. Because I think that's also, because if I do it before testing, I am literally shooting in the dark with zero logic, and that's not fun. I like there to be some logic to then try and come up with something interesting. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Cadillac anyway. Will Bottas and Perez be in the real life F1 movie part 2? I hope they don't. I hope they don't rush to drop another F1 movie. I hope that they let this one cook and simmer, and maybe align it with, I don't know, I guess it depends on how money hungry they're going to be. I just think look at the Marty Supreme movie and look at all of the hype that Timothée Chalamet's been able to generate around that, and that is the way that movie has really set a cultural kind of example as how you promote a movie. And the unique angle that the F1 movie has is that it's following an actual sport, and it's based off of an actual live sport. And I hope, I hope more than anything is that the equipment, the technology from the F1 movie finds its way into the broadcast and improves the broadcast. Because again, some of the onboard shots, if you've not seen the F1 movie, I would say see it in an IMAX if you can, because oh my god, it's so sick. I'm not even just saying at the start when it's Daytona, Indianapolis, it's just so sick. It's it really makes you feel like you're in the car, and that's I've never felt that immersed, I guess I'd say. So yeah, I think Bottas and Perez maybe stick around for long enough to be in the F1 movie part 2. I wouldn't bet on it, because I hope that they don't do it anytime soon. But again, Perez and Bottas still have plenty of time left on their respective F1 careers. So maybe they will. Thank you, Critical Hit. Maybe about the fact that Mercedes and Red Bull have reportedly found a loophole that makes the pressure go from 16.1 to 18.1, giving them 0.3 more worth of time. Well, I mean, I think the 0.3 is it's people using this the compression ratio thing to then speculate what that could mean lap time wise. So in case you don't know, there's been a lot of talk, because people move from different teams and information gets shared and NDAs don't last forever. Is it Mercedes, the teams that are being accused of doing this trick is Mercedes and Red Bull Powertrains, that it's basically upping the compression ratio from 16:1 to 18:1. So the compression ratio is, long story short, it's when you got the cylinder You got the piston that goes up and down and thin and then it's that distance. That's the compression ratio. I'm not going to go into the details. You don't need to know that information. But at the end of the day, if you can engineer your engine in a way that when the engine is in use and is hot and components can move, or, you know, we talked a lot last year, this season just gone, about expanding materials, phase changing materials. That was speculated a lot with the flexi wings and all that stuff. And this is the same kind of premise, but just within the engine. If at temperature you can make certain things deform and change to gain advantage, to gain compression ratio, then, and what the reason that this is potentially a thing is because in the writing of these new rules, it's specified that the compression ratio needs to be 16 to 1 when tested under like cold conditions, so when the engine's not in use, basically, which is seems like a bit of a naive way of doing it, because, you know, when we think back to 2019 when Ferrari had their engine naughtiness kind of capped, and that was, you know, that was alleged to be something to do with like when there's the component that was in the engine to test fuel flow would just go beep, beep, beep. So Ferrari would make sure that there was additional, allegedly, put that out there, allegedly, I don't want to get in trouble, that then more fuel flow would go opposite to those blips when it's detecting it, if you know what I mean. So it would work around the rule. And if that is what they were doing, like it is cheating, because they are actively bypassing the thing that is designed to maintain it, because the rule is you have to have a certain fuel flow when the engine is in use. That is the rule. In this instance, the rule is you have to have a 16:1 compression ratio when the engine's cold. And if that's the rule, like we talk about spirit of the regulations all the time, and I'm sure there's a quote from Adrian Newey that is something along the lines of, there's no spirit of regulations, it's the writing of the regulations. And if the writing of the regulations say it's 16 to 1 compression ratio when the engine's cold, if you can find a way to up that compression ratio when the engine's hot, then you are operating within the rules. That for me is different to the rules saying you need a certain fuel flow during the engine's use, and then creating a solution that bypasses the thing designed to track that fuel flow. To me, those are two different things. I don't know if you'd agree. That to me, those are two different things. One of them is cheating. One of them is playing to the whistle and playing to the rules. That's my opinion. And so if that's what Mercedes and Red Bull powertrains have been doing, and then all the other engine suppliers have gone to the FIA and been like, cry foul. Look, if they'd have just worded the regulations where your engine has to have a 16:1 compression ratio, cold and hot at all times, must retain no more than a 16:1 compression ratio, you wouldn't have this issue. Because then if teams were doing silliness, and, well, not silliness, very clever, but naughtiness, and making it look like 16:1 all the time, but actually not being, then I would say the same. I would say that's what allegedly Ferrari were doing with fuel flow back in the day. So yeah, I mean, it begins the technological, and this is always going to happen as well. And this is part of the stuff I really enjoy about F1. It's not the biggest thing I enjoy. For me, it's absolutely the racing, and I love quali as well. Like there's so much I love about motorsport, and I think the technological side of it, that battle, I think is so unique to F1. You know, to have that engineering STEM base, but also it be a sport, is super unique, and I think that's something that we should celebrate in the sport. And it does mean that you get contentious things like this. So we will see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, again, if the writing, you have to play to the writing of the rules, whether it's tech specs, whether it's sporting regs, whatever it is, you have to play to the writing of the rules, not the spirit. There's no such thing as the spirit. It is kind of true. And if you want there to be a spirit, you just then need to be hyper, super specific We have everything. And I'm sure they probably thought they would have been. And I'm sure if any of us wrote the regs, we'd think we'd being super specific. And then these teams with all these clever people, cheeky people, mischievous people, would find a way of making us, the rule writers, look stupid. And it feels like maybe that's what's happened here. Oh dear. But yes, thank you, Critical Hit, for your your message, your question. Should I say? I can't speak today. Thank you, Aidzanan, as well. Most underappreciated moment of the season. Merry Christmas, Tomo. Thank you for the content coming, you irons. We'll make it out the relegation spots in February. Trust. Honestly, Zan, like, just a little bit West Ham talk here. Honestly, while we're still in that stadium, that club will never have the meaning to me that it used to have, and it will never feel like sorry, I keep going to that overlay. It will never feel like home, and I've really switched off from the football as of late. Like, again, obviously the F1 stuff has always been a big time drain of my weekends, and so football's always just been highlights, and I'm still a highlight merchant, and even now I don't even watch all the highlights. I've been loving the darts as of late. I've been loving the darts, the PDC going on at the minute, Ali Pally, loving it, right? But yeah, the football just, it isn't hitting like it used to, and I just, you know, I've lost that connection to the football club that I've had my whole life, which is really sad, but it's true. And for me, anything it takes to, and maybe it's not realistic, and certainly isn't with these owners in charge right now, but anything that gets us out of that stadium and into our own home that's actually in and around West Ham, not in Stratford, would bring me back somewhat. And whether we're in Premier League, whether we're in Championship, whether we're in League One, you know, the thing is though, nothing's going to change. We fill that stadium. I don't have my season ticket anymore. I had it for the first 2 years in the new place. Barely any of my friends who also got season tickets then still have it, and it's just the ratio of like hardcore, proper, been there going for years West Ham fans versus casual fans who absolutely entitled to go to a football match, and you're in Stratford, it's super easy to get to in the middle of London. That ratio is going way more casual, and it's a shame because you do need to satisfy your hardcore fan base to then allow you to also open the doors to the casual. And right now they're just chasing ticket sales, and again we get such a insanely cheap deal on that stadium because if we weren't there it'd just be empty, and it just doesn't feel like that's going to end anytime soon. And I will always be a West Ham fan, but yeah, it genuinely makes me really sad, like thinking about it, because it isn't what it used to be. Which sounds very old man yells at cloud, but it's the truth. And I would happily take Championship football, give back the Conference League, and get us out of that stadium, get new owners in. Like, if you gave me that swap, I'd take it. I'd 100% take it. Which sounds sacrilege, but I just would. Because to me, it's never, ever been about the success and the winning and maybe that's why, you know, the drivers that I follow in F1, you know, you know, your Alex Albons, Yuki Tsunodas, your Esteban Ocons, the drivers that I'm drawn towards are the ones who haven't had it easy. Not that any of them have had it easy necessarily, but like the ones who, I don't know, just have a bit of a story and a fault, and there's something about them. So I'll always have so much respect for Lewis as well, like how he managed to get to this sport. And, you know, they didn't grow up in poverty, of course not, but like Anthony Hamilton had to like make the sacrifices, the real sacrifices that not all parents of drivers have to, because you know, they're financially in a very, very comfortable position. You know, it's a different kind of sacrifices, I suppose. So, yes. Yeah, I've completely forgot to even answer your question. Most underappreciated moment of the season. Most underappreciated moment of the season. It's a very good question. And it's a difficult question because if it's underappreciated, then I should have forgotten about it, you know? I mean, there's probably like... You know what maybe comes to mind is Isaac Hadjar's podium in Zandvoort. And you know why? Because no one gave Hadjar a shot, myself included, right? He'd done well in F3, finished 4th, which didn't look, but he was in the title right until the end. Had a really poor first season in F2. And then, yeah, I just, you know, he was second to Gabby in F2, had a difficult weekend in Abu Dhabi at the end. You know, felt like a bit of an afterthought, to be honest. That's what it felt like, that Red Bull were just chucking him in because, oh yeah, why not? Let's just chuck him in. It's not worked out with Ricardo, so let's put Hadjar in. And then has the terrible opening weekend in Australia. And it just, for him to, with such little preparation, and almost, I guess maybe the small amount of fanfare helped him in a way, maybe. But like, he wasn't prepared like Behrman. You know, Behrman had all the FP1s in the world. He had tons of experience at Haas relative. You know, Kimi was been, you know, TPC'd by Mercedes for a long time. And I'd say Bortoleto as well was very, very underprepared. But I think Hadjar really stuck out to me. He stuck out to me. Stuck's not a word. It stuck out to me as someone who's really, like, didn't feel like he was going to be, you know, adequately prepared to smash it this year, and just was so good. And that podium, obviously, you know, Lando's DNF, but I just think that was so impressive. And like the biggest pushback I got on my driver rankings was the gap between my ranking for Hadjar and Lawson, because I put Hadjar 6th and I put Lawson 17th, right? But Hadjar was quicker than Lawson, like, basically every weekend. Not necessarily by a huge amount, but consistently. 2 tenths in the first half of the year, a 10th in the second half. He got the podium. He was... And look, of course, Liam had a very suboptimal start to the year, right? And should have been in the racing, but it should have been Yuki straight away. Like, if you're going to make that change, then you should need to stick by it. And they didn't stick by it. And that hurt Yuki and Liam. But yeah, I just think that the way Hadjar against a you know, Liam's a good, what, couple of years older? I think Liam, how was Liam Lawson, like 22, I want to say? Maybe 22? 23. And then Hadjar is 21, yeah. So a couple of years between them. Liam's obviously had his ins and outs and he's done loads of FP1s. It's just, you know, for Hadjar to do... consistently be quicker than Lawson, but also just be probably the most consistent driver in the midfield, then I would say, yeah, I think Hadjar as a season is perhaps, and where it ended a bit quiet, but again, like Qatar, he should have got good points, like without that DNF at the end, like he should have really got 10th, and that would have been like so impressive, and it was such an impressive season, and I just think that's maybe not being seen for as good as it is, because yes, obviously Red Bull strong enough to give him the seat, but you can't say he didn't deserve it. You cannot say he didn't deserve it. Thank you, Serge, for your question. What is your opinion on the 2026 concept car aesthetically? I'm quite excited to see the 26 cars. They will probably be the best looking car since 2008. I just hope the liveries will be better. I'm tired of the matte carbon fibre liveries. Happy Christmas to you, Tommo, and to all watching. Thank you, Serge. I think the 26 cars look great. I really like the way they look. I think that for F1 to retain its open wheel nature, we need more simplified aerodynamics. The problem with simplified aerodynamics is then you're giving the teams less development room to flex and innovate. But I would say aesthetically, I completely agree. I think they look fantastic. I think they look really cool. I think the front wing design with the whole end plates being inner, they're a bit of a big throwback. Yeah, I think they look great. I wish they could be even smaller, but I understand that there are limitations from a safety point of view, how small you can make these cars. I just think, a reduction in size is just generally going to help across the board. They are obviously going to be, 10 centimeters narrower, 20 centimeters shorter, and 30 kilos lighter. So they are making moves into making these cars more raceable, and I hope it's going to make a difference. I don't know if that difference it's probably not going to be that visible on camera, but with these cars being smaller, they should look a little bit quicker. Even if they are, once these new cars get to the same level of performance as the current 2025 cars, they should look quicker going the same speed. It's like if you look back at, Fernando Alonso's move on Schumacher at Suzuka back in 2005, wasn't it? 5, 6, whenever it was. Back when those cars were tiny back then. Like, he just looks like a fly, just like right around the outside. Because they're so small relative to the speed they're going. So, yes, I think that the cars look fantastic, and I'm optimistic. The engines feels like a big shadow almost, because it's like, are these engines just a compromise? They were cooked up. The idea of 50-50 was kind of cooked up back when the EV market was still super hype, and now it's kind of fallen off a bit, and a lot of manufacturers are saying they're going to stick with ICE units for a bit longer. And I really do think, I think the sustainable fuel is huge, because I really think for the first time in a long time, the potential crossover from F1 with Aramco and Shell and all these other fuel brands, Gulf, involved in F1, creating these truly sustainable fuels, not just sustainable to be a buzzword, but actually sustainable, that can help keep the ICE power unit alive for longer, because it is you're not mining loads of materials for the batteries. It's a very well-trodden path, a piston power unit. If you can make the fuel sustainable going in it, and try and minimize because there's always going to be a market for electric, because again, when you're in central London, you can taste the smog. I understand, especially in a built-up city, having electric cars where they don't put anything out the back. Sure, the electric cars have their own carbon footprint at manufacture. I understand that, but at least you can control those emissions within that a bit more, rather than all the emissions just dropping out of the back of these cars that are driving around all over the place. So, yeah, I just gone on a bit of a waffle there. Serge, to answer your question, they will look sick. I hope deliveries will be better. I agree, and I think they are going to be more colourful. Well, I saw someone else's question which gets onto the whole colour thing, so we'll get onto that in good time. We've been live for 59 minutes now. Not live. This isn't a live podcast, but you know what I mean. Thank you, Edwards. Best meal deal combo. Had to be asked. You know what? Now I've started to mix it up a bit. I rarely go for the same meal deal twice. I used to always go for the feta tomato pasta with a green machine and cheese and onion McQuiz. That always used to be my consistent go-to. And I do Tesco. They do. I'm very loyal to Tesco. If Tesco ever want a brand deal, then I'm your guy, right? I'm very loyal to Tesco. Some of the turkey trimming sandwich is good. I like that sandwich. Sometimes if I fancy a sandwich rather than a pasta where I eat with a fork, then I'll do that. I also like the sun fried chicken pasta. And I also like the Kind bar, the protein one, just because of volume. And like, I know protein's a bit of a buzzword, but I just want to feel more full because I am a gannet. I will just keep eating. And yeah, drink wise, I usually get it's either a Green Machine or a Coke Zero, to be honest, in a bottle, because you get more milliliters. So yeah, I'm pretty consistent with my drink. Green Machine. Oh no, sometimes there's like what is it? It's like a Starbucks thing. It's like a caramel macchiato or something. And it's like loads of caffeine, obviously, loads of sugar in it. But if I like feel like a treat, I'll sometimes go for that. But most of the time it's Coke Zero or a Green Machine. I do still really like a Green Machine. And then yeah, some fried chicken pasta. Sometimes the feta pasta still, we'll still go for that sometimes. Turkey trimming sandwich. I'd like the BLT sandwich. And I also like that's another sandwich that I like. There's another one that's very similar, I guess. It's like chicken, bacon, and something. I don't know. That's basically where we're at. And yeah, snack, it's always cheese and onion McCoy's or one of the Kind bars, whether it's the protein one or the sea salt one. That's nice as well. There you go. That's my meal deal. That's my meal deal combos for you. Thank you, C. Roberts. All of Luke Browning's overtakes in the wet at Silverstone and Spa. What do you... What I don't really understand this question. All of Luke Browning's overtakes in the wet at Silverstone and Spa. Is that a question? Like, are you telling me that all of his overtakes in the wet were at Silverstone and Spa? I'm not sure what you're asking here, C. Roberts. But thank you for the question anyway. I appreciate it. Bridgie, who's your favourite F1 driver of all time? Not what you think is best, just favourite. Who's your favourite driver-teammate pairing of all time? Well, I've never backed a driver like I've backed Alex Albon. Like, when I was a kid, I remember like Mika Hakkinen in his West McLaren was like my first memory of like an F1 driver. Beyond that, I always liked Montoya because he had a bit about him and he was kind of going against Schumacher. And I never pulled for Schumacher because Schumacher was the dominant. And again, that's the West Ham suffering in me. I was drawn way more towards the drivers who were fighting against Michael than Michael himself. And so yeah, I was always more Hakkinen. I remember I really liked Montoya. And then obviously when Lewis came on the scene, Lewis was like, yes, love this guy. Jensen I really liked as well. And then obviously, yeah, like I'd say middle of Seb's dominance, I kind of fell away from the sport, really. I wasn't, yeah, I as I am with football now, I became a bit of just a highlights merchant. And I keep an eye on it and I watch the race highlights. But again, the highlights were very different back then. You had to watch it on telly, so I wouldn't always get it because YouTube wasn't as what it is now. So you had to watch the races much more back then. So I didn't always watch. I just kind of read about what happened after the facts. So yeah, and then obviously when I found myself really getting back into it, which probably 2016, probably, and obviously that stepped up with the better highlights on YouTube. It was, yeah, I'd say Ricardo was probably the guy that I was pulling for most. And then kind of just as each year went, when Lando came in, Pierre as well, really liked Pierre. And I still really like Pierre, but he was one of my favourites. Now he's in that group that I like, but I wouldn't put him in my favourites group anymore. Yeah, and then obviously Albon was just kind of, I don't know, I was drawn to him somewhat. I knew he was from fairly, not too far from where I live, but also just seemed like a very relatable, normal, a bit kind of like, especially in the earlier Albon years, and you can say this about all of the drivers, to be honest, in their rookie years, but a bit more like Arvid Lindblad. Look, he seems way too cool for a rookie. Do you remember when Lando had his big like hats on, like his big hat that came down to here, and like Albon was proper like a little bit awkward. George, who's just like, none of them had like, Lindblad's way too cool for a rookie, man. He's got to chill out. Even like Lewis when he was a rookie was not like, yeah, I don't know. I was just drawn to Albon, and then I think the struggles obviously at Red Bull just pulled me in more, because again, for me, it's like and that's why it was so rewarding at the start of this year, seeing him succeed relative to Sainz as well. I'm like, yes, I feel vindicated. And again, look, it's not about the success for me. You know, I'm not expecting Alex to win a world title. Now, that's not why I pull for a driver. It's not why I like. That's not why I like Alex. That's not why I like, you know, Esteban. Again, Esteban, I just think his story is amazing. You know, like for him to have made it, and you know, I know he can be a bit of a knob on track at times, but I forgive that because I like the guy. You know, and I respect his story and how he got to where he is. So, yeah. Who is your favourite driver teammate pairing of all time? That's another good question, Bridgie. As part of yours here, favourite driver teammate pairing of all time. Who's my favourite driver teammate? Honestly, I don't think anyone really sticks out. Like, probably, honestly, like Button and Hamilton when they were teammates at McLaren. Like, back then, that was cool because I liked them both. Like, they're both good characters. They're both quite different. So they were fun. I mean, obviously, recent years, I would say, I mean, anyone alongside Ricciardo. Like, Ricciardo Norris should have been vibes, and it was, but also obviously Daniel was really struggling on track, so that kind of spoiled it a bit. And obviously Carl Lando, like sometimes I get suggested, like, you know, Maria Carey. Some of the old like Lando and Carlos stuff was just jokes. So like they're honestly like quality teammates. And obviously Max and Daniel as well. Max and Daniel, just different era, man. So I don't know. Max and Daniel were very good because they were like really competitive, but also they had a proper laugh. And I respected how they were able to keep on track stuff on track and off track, you know. So I like that. Why not? Max and Daniel, why not? Thank you, Ash, for the question. Whatever happened to the monthly quizzes? They were fun, and me and my brother had a battle going on, but then it stopped. Yes, Ash, it did. You know what? Honestly, I had to, and for the same reason, I'm not doing a dedicated 26. You know, reacting to my seat driver predictions. It's just time use for then the payoff, because anytime I'm spent doing that, I'm not doing another video. And where I stubbornly do everything myself still, and I've definitely, the edits are longer, and I like to try and make them different and unique and good and stand out amongst all my fellow F1 YouTubers somewhat. So I just had to, I'd have loved to have made that a consistent, regular thing, but the viewership just wasn't there to justify it. That is the way it is sometimes. I'm glad you like the MASH, and I'm sorry that they're not continuing, but I had to make the call. Thank you, Lewis, for the question. What do you think about the 26 regs? Generally, look, the cars look great, and people way more intelligent than me have come up with the rules and the energy deployment and all this stuff. And I just hope that they're right. And I'm trying to, as best as I can, because I just think just being negative just because of everything you read and speculating just to be negative, I'm not going to do that. Like, I want to give it a chance. And also, you need to bear in mind that the regulations at the start, you know, of 26 are going to be very different to what they are. What we'll have 26, 27, 28, 29 if we have 4 years of these regs. You know, by the end of 29, these cars are going to look different. Their competitive order is going to be different in the same way that it was different between 2022 and the end of 25. So I'm choosing optimism, I think is the term. Thank you, Federico. Leonardo Fornaroli, yes. I mean, I would. This is another one where I would like to have done a video on Leo when he won F2, but I just didn't have the time to just do a video that's going to be well researched, well edited, and just good enough quality for me to be happy putting out there. But yeah, Leo has done all he can. He's won F3 and F2 back to back, and he's part of McLaren now, so they've given him a bit of a lifeline, but it does feel like it's kicking the can down the road. I don't think there's going to be an opportunity in McLaren anytime soon. Dunn saw that. Bortoleto saw that. Bortoleto got himself a seat. Dunn still hasn't. And I just hope he just keeps doing his thing. Like, I hope McLaren give him the chance to shine and do something, because of course he can't do F2 again because he won it. So yeah, I don't know where the door is for Leo. I really don't. And I worry his chance will pass. But at the same time, he merits an opportunity. But there's only so many seats in this sport. That's why now we need a 12 team. 12 team, please. Please, I beg. Right. Thank you, Divan, for your question. Now, there's a few here we've already talked about. You saw rumours, Red Bull and Merck's engine thing, which I've already talked about. So we've covered that off. Portimao, we've also covered that off. Is it going to be future for European circuits alternating with each other? I do think so. I do think so. And I know what you mean about Liberty wanting more money, which I'm sure definitely is a factor, of course. But also, look, if you're going to have 24 rounds, I'm quite happy with them not being at 24 static venues. So if you were to alternate, I'm not against alternating venues as long as you're alternating the right venues and keeping the right venues, you know? Venues like Austin, like Silverstone, like Suzuka, like Monza, you know, these venues should not be getting rotated. But venues like Imola, like Miami, like etc., etc., rotate them. Sure, great, fine. You know, every year it's not going on. Maybe still open up the circuit, still sell tickets, and people can do like a watch along at the circuit. You work with the circuits to be like, right, this is going to happen every other year. You know, you're going to have the race in 26, but you're not going to have it in 27. So in 27, you can still go down to, say, Spa, for example, on the F1 weekend, and they've got the big screens, and they have some, you know, they have some like TPC cars going around or something. So fans get to see F1 cars. They don't get to watch the live race there, but they still have an event they can sell tickets to. Something like that. I think that could maybe work. You know, why not? Why not? Why not indeed? Your expectations of livery release and speculations. I've not seen too much speculation livery-wise. I don't know if you have, but like, nothing that I mean, Ferrari will look like a Ferrari, McLaren will look papaya, Mercedes will look like a Mercedes. Like, I think obviously there's a few new connections. So obviously Aston Martin, Honda. Will Aston Martin have any red? Because Honda do like a bit of red. Maybe. I mean, Toyota Gazoo Racing with Haas. Toyota, that colour palette already works with Toyota as it does Haas. That's fine. Red Bull, I think I would love to see the Ford Blue replace the dark navy that Red Bull have been running for ages. Because again, that would just make sense because they use that brighter blue on the cans anyway. So that would be cool. I think there's a good opportunity now to maybe keep the composition of the livery, but just change up the blue to the Ford Blue. That would be cool. Because you're still not fundamentally changing the livery. Because I don't think they would. Because why would they? Like, it's such a, you know, the Red Bull on the nose and the Red Bull on the air inlet above the driver's head. That's just such an iconic layout. Again, we've already got a sneak peek of what the Audi will look like, color palette wise, anyway. So that's cool. There's not much else, is there? Same for pre-season testing. Focusing a little bit more on Audi and Cadillac. Red Bull Racing with new power unit manufacturer. Aston with Honda. Alpine with Merck. Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of new connections going on. You know what I'm interested in seeing? How much actually comes out of this early Barcelona test that's behind closed doors that none of us are allowed to see. Like, how much gets reported? That's what I'm interested to see. How many spy shots do we get? How many people take drones? How many people sneak in? and take pictures on their, flip phones. Like, that's going to be interesting to see if we get any leaks, because there's going to be leaks. Of course there's going to be leaks. Who's going to be responsible for the leaks? Are they going to get tased on site? Paige, thank you for your... Oh, sorry. One more from Divan. And your most unhinged prediction for the new regulation cycle? Most unhinged prediction... Is that Kajal wins a race? Why not? Why not? Thank you, Paige. Who could join F1 as a 12th team in the not too distant future? Well, we know that Christian's been speaking with potential 12th team people. We know Otmar has got a 12th team in the works as well. I think given the resistance to Andretti's entrant and having to get Cadillac on board, I think you're going to need a OEM interested as well. I think someone like a Hyundai, they're doing bits at the minute. I think they're in a really strong place. Obviously, they might be a bit too early for them because they're just jumping into WEC for the first time with like Genesis as the brand. But I could definitely see a Genesis F1 team down the line. And also the fact that Toyota and Honda are in there. I think the Koreans with Hyundai will want to, there's always been a competitive rivalry between the Koreans and the Japanese in the automotive sector, as much as there's been also a competition between Honda and Toyota within Japan. So that would be, I think you do need like an OEM back in it, because that's the thing, F1 teams make money these days. They're not just loss marketing exercises anymore. So that makes it a little bit more viable but again, to get the bid across the line, you're going to have an OEM. Going to have an OEM involved in some way, shape or form. You're not just going to get a bunch of people with money creating a team named after all of them together. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to happen. So I would say Genesis, which is obviously owned by Hyundai, is probably my biggest shout for that. Ryan, will Alpine 26 dominance bore fans? It won't bore Argentinian fans, I can guarantee you that, that's for sure. I mean, I would love it if Alpine were actually somewhat competitive. That'd be so sick. I think Pierre would deserve that. He's been patient with this team. He had his bad time at Red Bull, got dropped and performed really well at Toro Rosso, didn't get picked up. I remember a time there was rumours of linking him to McLaren, but that never happened. And so, yeah, I think Pierre merits a shot fighting at the front. And I think Colapinto has potential, and he would be a solid number 2. I think he'd be a solid number 2 driver to Pierre Gasly. Alpine 2026, look, they can produce a chassis. I think they can definitely produce a chassis. David Sanchez leading up that technical team. If they have a good power unit in the back, maybe. I mean, Briatore is the only person who can destroy that, I think. With his erratic decision making at times. Thank you, Connor. Well, I hope you said looking forward to it. I hope you have looked forward to it. Thank you. Current saga, Danny Alex. Regarding new engines, already talked about that, but thank you, Danny. Do you think these types of cars, however many seasons go by, will inevitably suffer from teams transforming them into dirty making machines? Just like the end of 21 and 25. As always, love what you do, mate. Thank you, Imaginori. Thank you. Suffer from teams transforming them into dirty air-making machines. That is what these teams are going to do. They're going to iterate. They're going to add downforce, and often that adding of downforce creates more dirt. Yeah, so it is the job of the regulator to pin the teams back in the same way that, going into 2021. There was that floor change for Mercedes, which, do I think that was used to pin back Mercedes from a competition point of view? Maybe it was. I don't know, right? But those kind of tweaks to the rules, let's see how these cars come out of the, once they get the wrapping off and we go racing, early on in the season. We'll know by like mid-season what innovations these teams have brought. And perhaps, it doesn't have to be every year necessarily, but maybe we have this first season and then in the break, the FIA work on some adjustments to the regulations that are then announced prior to the 27 season and then implemented from the middle of 27 or the start of 28 maybe. Like, do something. It's a 4-year regulation cycle. So just create these rules now. Let the teams do all this innovation and you know, spirit of the rules, doing different things that you haven't expected, whatever, because, you know, the FIA don't have the technical minds of all 11 F1 teams combined, do they? So they're going to find, you know, ways around these things. To just leave them unchecked for 4 years seems ridiculous, and that's exactly what they did in the last regulation cycle. So, yes, I would like to see the FIA take on that, look at what happened, look at how dirty the air became from these ground effect cars, and learn from it and make sure that doesn't happen again. So, Imaginary, it comes down to whether the FIA do anything about it. Is basically my thought for that. Thank you, DJJM27. Hello, Tomo. Out of the rookies this season, who do you think will have the best season in 26? Yeah, that's a good question. I like that one. It's a good question. I think, obviously, Hadjar's always going to be in a difficult environment because he's alongside Max. So even if Hadjar does a good job, which I've got confidence that he will be, Red Bull will have learnt enough from their previous mistakes to not do the same thing again. But it will be hard for him to shine when he's got Max as his teammate. I think Ollie should be in a good place and has already started to kind of take a bit of a command at that team. So I'd probably say Kimi's obviously got George. I think George could be in the title fight, you know. I think probably Ollie, if I had to say right now, who's going to have the strongest year in 26 of all the 25 rookies. What I think. Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate it, Nathan. Recognise that little profile picture. Always see you popping up. Appreciate the support, Nathan. Who do you see at risk for losing their seat next year? Lewis. Like, I'm guessing you're saying like not mid-season, but like 26. At the end of 26, they'll lose their seat. That's how I'm interpreting this. Because yeah, I would say Lewis, if Ferrari aren't competitive, could definitely dip before at the end of 26. I think Ocon could be in trouble. I think Lawson could be in trouble if Soloff has a good year and Lindblad's outperforms Lawson. And I don't think that will happen. I think Liam's too good. I don't think he'll let that happen, but that's a maybe. I'm worried about Ocon just because Behrman's performing really well. I can't say any other names really like stick out to me. Ocon and Hamilton are the two. I've got to say that are really like front and center in my mind, you know. But I guess we'll see as the year goes on, because there's a lot of potential for, we say losing a seat. There's one thing, losing the seat. There's another one like being replaced. For example, Sainz replaced by Hamilton. Sainz didn't deserve to lose that Ferrari seat, but he did. Does that happen to anyone? Perhaps. Thank you, Mr. Andy. With a bona fide new team joining, how do they usually get on? My memory says none too well to begin. These guys and girls got any hope? Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Mr. Andy. Like I already said about Cadillac, right? They're starting from scratch. Even Haas didn't start from scratch because they bought loads of old Marussia stuff, like Marussia's old factory and a bunch of old, Marussia staff and technical equipment there. So I think obviously it's a new generation of F1. It's very different. Cost cap generation F1 as well, because obviously Haas joined in 2016. So this is the first new team from scratch in the cost cap era, which might make the job a bit easier. It just depends, the technical minds that they've poached from other teams, how well they work together as well. So I've got more hope than I have in previous years. I would say that. I've got more hope than I've had in the past. Thank you, I'm Shaman. How would you describe Arvid's prospects in F1 and how optimistic someone should be for his future in F1? I don't know anything about his racing career, but have Antonelli as a reference. He came winning through the junior categories and was very rightly hyped amongst the media. Don't know much about Lindblad. So Lindblad is the youngest winner in F2, I want to say, ever. I believe is the youngest ever winner in F2. No, I think the hype around Arvid is genuine, legit, and I think Red Bull, it feels like he is Red Bull's Antonelli, that they've really, because he didn't win F2 this year. He had some good performances, he had some stinkers as well. Yet, just like Behrman, just like Antonelli, the team saw enough that, right, we're going to give him this shot. And they've done TPC with him, they've done testing with him. Again, he's still so young. Is he 18 now? Is he still 18 right now? Let me just check. Yeah, he's still 18. He doesn't even turn 19 till August. So yeah, he is. But also he seems to be very, very mature for his age. Like seems to have a very, very, level demeanor, speaks very well, which all helps. Obviously, he's going to be under pressure, but he backs himself as well. We've all seen the clip of him saying to Lando, "I'll see you in 5 years." 5 years ago. So that was very apt. Yeah, I think the hype around Arvid is legit. Will he deliver on the hype? That remains to be seen, but it's looking good so far, I would say. I think it's looking good so far. Ragav, will braking points be different from next year? Exiting a corner might be faster, but entering into a corner with low downforce means early braking. Does that reward or penalise any particular driver? That's a very good question, Ragav. So I think I was listening to Team Talk, which is the Williams podcast with Alex and Carlos. It's a good pod, really good. And they were talking about themselves wondering whose driving style is going to suit these new cars, who's inherent natural, who's going to take to these new regs most efficiently, effectively, whatever. And obviously braking is a huge component. We've seen Lewis really struggle on the brakes this year because of the change to Brembo and not having the feel that he's used to. So, I mean, does it reward or penalise any particular driver? We know some drivers obviously are a bit more aggressive, a bit more V drivers. Lewis, Oscar, typically are drivers who do more of a V. Jensen, Lando, thinking Jensen Button back in the day. And McLaren teammates, they're good references, right? Because they both had slightly different inherent natural styles. Lando's a bit more of a Jensen U driver. You carry a bit more speed, you're a bit more progressive with the steering input. Oscar and Lewis, much more kind of straight into the apex, twist, turn, straight out again. It's a good question because obviously the front wings having the movable aero means that balance should be less of a challenge through high-speed corners to set up in the car anyway, and also the lack of ground effects, aerodynamics should make the cars easier to set up as well. Because obviously in DRS era, down the straight, you're taking off a load of downforce from the rear wing when you open DRS, but then the front wing's not changing, so the front wing's making the nose of the car even more pushed into the ground. When you've got the DRS active, obviously now it's this, constantly active aero. So honestly, it's a good question, Ragav. I'm not sure. I don't think they know. I think they probably get an idea from the sim, because of course when you are under braking, the front and rear wing will be in normal mode, and then I guess it's just how much more agile with these cars. Again, a bit lighter, a bit shorter, a bit narrower. How much more agile does that create a car? The wheels are a bit narrower as well, aren't they? The tyres, so you'd expect a bit less grip. So perhaps drivers who are a bit more, comfortable with holding their car on the edge possibly will benefit at the start. But it's a good question, Ragav. I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure. Matthias, who will come out on top at the end of the 26 regs, Aston or Williams? Well, I mean, I'd love to say Williams. But then there's good arguments for both, isn't there? There's really good arguments for both Matthias. It's a good question. There's good arguments for both. Aston Martin obviously have the infrastructure. So much is there already. They've got Newey. They've got Cardile. Yes, they've had to move some things around with Cal moving across to more the engine side, but that is what he specialises in. And they've got Fernando, who still seems to be driving at a top level. Lance, is a comfortable number 2, which might actually end up helping them from a drivers' championship point of view, not constructors, but drivers, but possibly. So, but then Carlos, particularly bringing his input to Williams, I think is really going to help. Alex felt very happy with how his season went. It was a difficult last few weekends, but there's a lot of poor luck in there as well. I think Williams. Because I think in many ways Vowles has been able to break everything, as he says, break everything, and then rebuilds, and just feels like a really good vibe at that team. Everyone's pulling in the same direction, and they outperformed Aston Martin in a regulation period where they had no right to, really. So, yeah, I'm going to say Williams. I've got more belief in Williams than I do Aston Martin, for sure. Can you talk about your opinion on whether Alex Dunn would have fit into the Red Bull Junior program, even if he wasn't given a race seat for next year? I think the junior program gives as much as, because some drivers do buy their way in. Now, as Alex showed that he had from that practice session in Austria, that he had real pace in that McLaren. I also think a lot of drivers could show good one-lap pace in a top car if given an FP1 session and fully sending it around a track like Austria. So I don't know. I'm still not... I want to see more from Alex this year. I'm glad he's getting another F2 season. I'm glad he's got his seat with Rodin, who are a pretty competitive team. I want to see more. I want to see more from Dunn. Would he fit into the Red Bull Junior program? Maybe. Again, obviously Helmut's departure from the team. That was his repertoire, wasn't it? So I do wonder how Helmut departing is going to affect the Red Bull Junior program moving forward, because that was his thing. That was his baby. That's what he looked after. So yeah, he clearly got pace done. He's clearly got a mistake in him. There were quite a few unforced errors, but many a young driver with a lot of potential does. So he's pushing limits, That's what happens. Thank you, S16353. What is your favourite Rihanna song? I mean, there's only one answer to this question, and it's Ponder Replay. Absolute banger. Has to be. Absolute banger of a song. Love Ponder Replay. Great tune. Great tune. Minton has returned. Hands popped out. So Minton is here. Look at him. You're so beautiful, aren't you? What a little boy. What a little boy. Right, you're going on my shoulder, mate. You're going on my shoulder. My voice is starting to go. I'm not going to lie. So I'm gonna skim through some more of these questions, and a few of you. So Roberts, you've asked a few, so I'm gonna pass on a couple. I'm gonna kind of. Oh, here we go. Famke, thank you for your super chat, Famke. What do you think about the livery rule coming in? I'm gonna try and cover things I haven't really spoken about. Livery rule. Yes, 55% painting on a car. Should it be more? Look, I think. How much can they realistically enforce, I guess is my question. And this will be less of an issue in 28, 29, when these cars are more developed. It's more of a problem at the start of a regulation cycle. But yeah, if they've found a way that they can easily mandate it, then why wouldn't you? Because also the teams benefit, really. If you can enforce a rule that is easily enforceable, then it means that you can have bigger, brighter sponsors who will pay more money, and all that, right? So it's in everyone's interest. Us as fans, seeing bright, shiny, colourful car drive around is more interesting than all of them being just carbon fibre. So, yeah, great. Love it. Happy days. Works for me. Works for me. Love it. Sherman, Hey Tomo, do you have a favourite YouTube F1 creator that you watch over the season? If you do, what do you like about their takes on the season? Good question, Sherman. So I'd say the channel that I consume the most of is The Race, because I think the journalists they've got are just so clued in, and I think they give really good insight, and it's really helpful for me. And I listen to their stuff just as much as a fan as I taking notes, like in my head, because again, I have the access I have, which is basically no more than anyone else, right? I don't often go to races. I don't have any, as much as I freelance for Red Bull, I don't have like a backdoor information. Like, I really don't. So that'd be great if I did, but I don't. So yeah, I would say that the channel that I consume the most of is The Race. And then in terms of like individual creators, again, I guess it's a bit different for me because I'm doing all my stuff. Then I'm looking to The Race, particularly The Race, for information. And then watching creators, I would say that I don't so much watch creators that are like, I like Josh Revel's stuff is amazing because he does really cool like breakdowns of topics that aren't even topical, you know? I don't really watch any creative stuff like, for example, like Matt and Tommy, who've like, they are the template. They are, in terms of independent creators and, you know, doing the kind of style of content that I do, you know, they are the template. They are the gold standard. And I'll watch plenty of Matt and Tom's stuff, but not in the same way that I'd watch like even channels like say that I don't actually watch that much F1 YouTube outside of, again, The Race, and it's more just other stuff like just automotive or whatever's just, I'm interested in golf, a lot of golf stuff at the minute. So yeah, I think there's so many people out there who just do like, just smash it, just make like amazing stuff. And ultimately the good thing with YouTube is that it is if your stuff is interesting enough to build an audience, then you can make a career of it, you can make a living. If the work is rubbish, the audience will disappear. So you watching, consuming this stuff tells me that, all right, I must be doing something right. And if that number goes down, it probably means that I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing something. I'm missing something, whether it's the content itself, whether it's the editing, whether it's the thumbnails, whether it's the titles, whatever. And so I am always looking at other F1 creators, but not just F1, to be honest. Like, just any niche on YouTube is helpful for me as a YouTubeist. But yeah, I would say, yeah, outside of The Race, Josh, obviously I support my mates, you know, Aldas, Matt and Tommy. You know, whenever I see their stuff, I'll chuck it on in the background when I'm doing the washing up or whatever, to give them good watch time. That's the best way you can support your favorite creators. Watch time. The worst thing you can do is click on a video and then immediately just like click off and do something else. Like, watch time is the thing that YouTube looks for right now. So, isn't it, Minton? Yeah. Who's your favorite F1 YouTuber? Who is it? Tell me. Look at him. What a little cutie patootie. Love it. Thank you, Not Yet Lemon. So let me just change back to the question screen share. I know you spoke about the changes you'd make to the point system, but what would you change about the weekend format? I think that testing FP1, 2 and 3's days are numbered. I would even say like a lot of the drivers aren't very pro like FP1, 2 and 3. Like, I think Did you just dribble on me? You did, didn't you? You need his grubbing a bit, actually. We've been live for an hour and 40 minutes, so whoa. Careful, son. I mean, look, I'd like to see Monaco do something different. I think if you're going to keep that track format, try one shot to make it a bit different. I think they're going to make some track changes next year. I hope so. Because they need, if you can just have at least one overtaking as well. The thing is, though, Fernando was still able to do a similar kind of train in Qatar with that kind of mandated stop thing. So even at Qatar, you couldn't, like, turn one wasn't enough of an overtaking opportunity to get it done. So it's tough. It's tough. I do think Monaco needs something else. But for the rest of the season, I'm kind of okay with it as it is. Not massively against the existing format, but change the point system. I don't know if I'd make changes to the point system. The merit of rewarding points to all would give a more reflective drivers' championship and a more reflective constructors' championship of how you've actually done, because P11s don't result in 0 points. Like they do at the moment. Do you want to get down, mate? Go on. I think the sprint format is going to become the norm. Like, it just will become the norm. And I'm getting used to it, and that's the idea, right? The F1 just introduces it, drip feeds it, and you get used to it, and eventually it becomes the norm, you know? Maybe make FP1 longer or something, and have sprint format, but like make FP1 longer. Maybe that's the way forward. But thank you, Lemon, for your question. I hope I've answered that satisfactorily. Thank you, Yvonne. I feel like the situation with Lewis needs to be addressed, and Ferrari have pushed him aside. He wasn't at their Xmas party, wasn't he? And they were more relaxed without him there. Even Fred said he is an issue. Well, so Fred said, the quote I've seen from Fred is that it's been more difficult than they anticipated. So, which, I mean, was it kind of naive, right? Surely this was going to be challenging, very difficult. Driver in there, 40s, long, successful career, always Mercedes powered, big change, like it's against Charles Leclerc. Like, come on. Obviously, this was going to be a difficult first year, obviously. I mean, the thing is, the profile of Lewis, the difficulties McLaren have had, Ferrari don't need Lewis to be quick. Like, they don't need him to be as quick as Charles anyway. Ferrari need Lewis to be there, be in the team, be somewhat motivated. But Charles Leclerc, if the opportunity is there to win a title, Charles Leclerc's going to be the one to take it, isn't he? So, yeah, Lewis isn't going to be happy playing second fiddle, and they'll get one more season out of him. But I would be shocked if Lewis is still in F1 in 2027. And it'll be a sad way for his career to end, should I say. But that often is the case. And as much as Lewis has all these titles and all these records and all this popularity and all this, that he's built over time, if his career just ends with a bit of a whimper, then it won't be the first time that... no one remembers Kimi Raikkonen's career ending because it was in Abu Dhabi 21 and his car just conked out. Yeah, I'm surprised I remember that, It's just the way it is. Just the way it is. Sad. It's sad. But I definitely don't think there's like... Ferrari would definitely like this to work, but it's a bit of a Hail Mary, I think, from all parties, to be honest. And thank you, Jen. Does Minton have a favourite race team or driver? Oh, obviously Lewis Hamilton, because that's his favourite thing. Favourite race at 25, pal? You know what? Honestly, pal, I can't remember what my favourite race of 2025 was, because there's so many, and it's all just like, my brain is just like, it's just been blended. I don't remember what my favourite race of 2025 was. That's the honest answer. I do not remember. Dumda, I've already kind of answered that question. Was there any other misses? Sarah, you said about Bernie's wife and the FIA presidential ticket. Yeah, there was some like madness with like the FIA, like MBS getting the the guaranteed seat as head of the FIA because of Bernie's wife or something being on the like. Is that what I'm saying? Honestly, I don't know enough to be speaking about this on a podcast in front of potentially thousands of people. So I don't know. It's my answer. I don't know. How's the dog, Nathan? I mean, he's good. He's good. He didn't hurt himself going down the stairs, so that's good. But he's been very cute, hasn't he? Thank you, Nuno, Renault, Sacre Bleu, indeed. Thank you, Mega versus Prime. F1 26 silly season, F2 25 and 26 candidates for F1 27, etc. Yeah, I think we've kind of covered that, haven't we? So I think Ugo is looking good. I think Freddie Slate is looking good. I think Tappanen's looking good. There's some potential in F3 and of course F2. Plenty of names that we've already gone over. Thank you, Callum. If you had to choose between the teams that you believe will fight for the title next season, especially after the engine compression ratio, who would that be? Look, I think that Mercedes still have to be front runners, right? And of the Mercedes teams, you have to anticipate that McLaren, followed by Mercedes, followed by Williams and or Alpine. You know, before seeing any testing, you have to give them top four, don't you? You know, and this is why we need to see testing. I'm not doing my predictions before testing because there's just no point because I'm just shooting in the dark. I'll do a shoot in the dark prediction, but then save it for my post-test predictions and see how they compare. You know. Nickname: why Alpine will be the best team in 26? Because David Sanchez and Pierre Gasly, baby. Ready, steady, destroy. How would you feel about F1 becoming similar to FE in the respect of more peloton-style racing? Peloton-style. I don't know what that means. I've heard of peloton. It's like the bike, isn't it? Like, do you mean like the speedy zone you can drive through to get more boost or whatever? If that is what you mean, then no. I do like Formula E's qualifying format. That head-to-head kind of thing is cool. I think that could work in some capacity. Maybe make you... I don't know why. You need to make sprint quali feel different. Otherwise, it just feels like normal quali and it all gets blended up. So maybe sprint quali have the whole head-to-head. Is that what you mean by that? Or is that racing? The head-to-head quali thing that they have in FE. Try that out on sprint qualies to make it different. One shot for sprint qualies, make it different. Whatever. Just do something different. Don't do the same normal quali format, just a little bit shorter. What are we doing here? Silly. Thank you, Alessandra. Which drivers do you expect to shine the most in 26 based on their driving style? Would the rookies be ones to watch? I think rookies are going to be ones to watch because you would anticipate they're going to be more adaptable. And I already said I think Behrman's going to be very strong, so no reason why he won't be. And honestly, look, I think Lando getting this title won, getting that kind of duck off his back, puts him in a really strong position. And I think Oscar's going to step forwards. I mean, I think Charles is going to be quick, George is going to be quick, Max is obviously going to be quick. Based off their driving style, I don't know, but I think it's going to be a very competitive grid next year, talent-wise, but I just think the cars are going to be... We could be seeing some big gaps, for sure. Thank you, Von Loaf. If the 26 Ferrari is a stinker and Lewis has another stinker season, will he retire at the end of the season? Yes. Will Leclerc try and get out of there? I think he will hold on. It depends how far off they are, I suppose. Like, if the Ferrari is by far the worst engine... I don't. If that is the case, then I'm sorry, Charles. I'm so sorry because he's got to make a tough decision then. A very tough decision. Yvonne, thank you again. A discussion about Newey and people, especially the young fans, really don't understand that you don't give too much power to him as it won't be pretty other than Aston Martin. You don't really understand that you don't give too much power to him as it won't be pretty other than for Aston Martin, I guess is what you're saying. Look, what I will say, right? Adrian Newey understandably, rightfully, has a aura around him because he's achieved so much success. However, Rob Marshall, man, like in this ground effect regulation era, it's Rob Marshall who is cooked more than any other. So, yes, Adrian Newey will, I think, do wonders at Aston Martin, and he will integrate a lot of learnings that he's gained over his long career in this sport. And I think that will benefit Aston Martin in the long run. However, he is not a silver bullet. There's no such thing. So, yes, I think, look, he's got shares in Aston Martin. He's got shares in the team. So, the fact that he's got skin in the game does make things a bit different. And I do wonder if, you know, again, the giving him a team principal role is going to stretch him too thin. Perhaps it will. That is the consensus concern around Newey at the moment. The thing is, Newey's Newey. Newey's Newey. He's got that aura, you know. He's got that aura for good reason. Thank you, Cam. Who do you think will be first to win championship between Williams, Aston and Ferrari? Of those three, I would say it's for Williams to overcome Mercedes and McLaren. Aston, I think, with a Honda engine, if they get that right, I would say Aston. That's not royalty-free music going on in the background. That could be an issue. I would have to look at that in the edit. Yeah, I hope you're all well, and I wish you all the best. Have a lovely Christmas Day, New Year, all that. And yeah, I've got nothing more to say, really. It's been a pleasure. We do it again for 26, all again. And I hope to see you here on the Tommo YouTube channel. My name is Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.